Views. Your Views is a program that is hosted on Win FM every Friday morning around this time, 10 o'clock. And normally, usually, I'm your host. My name is Sandra Creeley Atherton. And I just want you, for those of you who are not here, to know that it's in St. Kitts, to know what a beautiful weather we have. The sun is out in all its glory. The wind is the breeze, is rustling to the trees. It is the sound of music. It is a beautiful Friday morning. It's a morning where you wake up and you thank God for being alive, because there's so many people who doesn't have the same opportunity to do so, and we should be grateful. You wake up in the morning with praise in your and thanks in your heart, and you're grateful that you were spared, because when you look at the situation of where the world is in right now, the Caribbean, we never thought situations like this. We hear it in America, in Europe. But when we recognize the Caribbean is basically a part of the statistics, it is frightening. COVID is a reality. It is killing people. It's making people sick. There are long-term side effects from COVID. And the only thing that we have to do, simple things, is to adhere to protocols. It was working before the vaccination. It still has to work during vaccination, because whether or not you're vaccinated, you have to still follow protocols. That is wearing masks, the washing of hands, and social distancing. You know, these are simple protocols. When we look at what is happening in Grenada, you see what is happening in Antigua. You see what's happening here in St. Kitts. We're over 1,000. We've had 9 deaths so far. We have people who have been hospitalized, people who have been in ICU. So we know that this is a reality. Lots of us are waiting for it to happen to one of our family members or happen to us. And so when I look at the behavior, of how we as Kittitians think it's, and citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis behave, it is frightening. We are blessed. We always say that. We are always spared from everything else. God is watching us. I think that we are a chosen people sometimes. We see how many other countries suffer from different natural disasters. We recognize now that we have being basically part of the statistics where COVID-19 is not picking out. Congratulations to Patriots. That is the franchise that's from St. Kitts and Nevis that represents us. And I agree, people want to celebrate, and people are happy that Patriots finally won. And in this time, we are celebrating our 30th anniversary of independence. It was National Heroes Day yesterday. We've celebrated that. We've talked about all of the great heroes of the past and those that we have here in the present and the future, the children that are part of the National Heroes celebration, who are themselves are recognized as little heroine and heroes, and we are grateful for that. But at the end of the day, we still have to adhere to protocols. I saw people, whether or not you're vaccinated, I see people, they're so happy, they're reveling, they're together, they're celebrating. And at the end of the day, after the celebration comes, my mother used to say, whenever you see wherever joy is, cry is. She used to say that. So we have to be very careful and understand that COVID is not a joke. Young people are being affected. Babies are being affected. Older people have been affected. It spares no males and females. It doesn't look at color, creed, size, age, or anything. Sorry. It's just everybody's affected. We just have to adhere to protocols. It was my intention to have the Minister for Education here, and he just told me in the next half an hour he'll be able to come, or I can call and we have the discussion. Because we see now that our schools are being affected. We ask ourselves the question, what are we going to do? I mean, should the government schools be open? When we had little or no cases, schools were closed, and now it's happening. It's really, really happening. And then you wonder, how much longer can we close down again? Is it economically viable for us to do something like that, to close down again? Or do we have to really start learning to live with COVID-19? But then when you look and see what is happening, we have to exercise caution, and we have to have measures in place so that we can control the spread of the virus. So then you ask yourself the question, what are some of the effective measures that you can put in place to control the spread of the virus? It's not a topic that I really like to talk about, but it's a topic that need to talk about when you start looking at our stats, recognizing that our figures, our numbers are rising. I've heard the cry. I've been in tune to most of the Caribbean islands because it's something that is new to us. We need to wake up and realize this is not normal. This is not a normal thing. Something is happening that we are not aware of. And so therefore, we have to start to make that change. We have to start to adapt. We have to start to look and see how we can play a part in helping to curb the spread of COVID in St. Kitts and Nevis. Nevis at one point in time only had 16 cases about 2 months ago. Now they're over 200. And it shows how fast this thing is spreading. We don't seem to know there are many different. Every time there's a different variant. It started off slow. Now we realize Delta, and then there are others out there. And we recognize that the spread is even more difficult to control because it's easier for people to catch the virus now because of the variant that it is. And every time there's a different variant, you have to have a different approach, because I've listened to people from CDC and WHO, the World Health Organization, and they're saying that now you have to, whether or not you're vaccinated, you have to exercise caution because you can contract the virus, okay? They say you're not going to die from it and you would not be hospitalized. That is for some people. It's not one size fit all. So it's not because I wasn't hospitalized doesn't necessarily mean that you, because you're vaccinated, would not be hospitalized. It depends on circumstances. People have underlying diseases that they're not aware of, and they're affected and find themselves in ICU, and then later on they die from the virus. There are people who would have recognized that they have the symptoms, and it is what is happening here in St. Kitts and Nevis that I can talk about, that people are tested, and yet they're out at work waiting for results, and you ask yourself, what script is this? It's just so ridiculous. I mean, I think from you, and the government has been appealing to everybody, if you find that you have flu-like symptoms, they tell you what the symptoms of COVID is. You have flu-like symptoms, you have body pain, you have fever, you have coughing and sneezing, then you exercise caution. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have COVID, but you should exercise caution. Exercising caution means that if you're working, you stay home, you go to the center where you can get yourself tested to see whether, or report it to the NEOC and see how you can be tested to see whether or not you have the virus, and look at your symptoms. And at the same time, you self-isolate yourself. You self-isolate, you go into quarantine yourself, and make sure and wait until your results come back. Again, there's some people who have symptoms of COVID, and when the tests come back, it's saying negative. It is just a myriad of strange things that are happening, and we just have to exercise caution. Not just exercise caution, but we have to start being more responsible. For those of us, and those of you, and those of all of us who realize that there are other things that you can do. Those of you who know about herbs, it is something that you can go to. You can start making sure that you boost your immune system. Zinc is something that is touted. Vitamin C is another one. Lemongrass tea. These are things people are just saying because I think of their medicinal properties, that they think that they can help with COVID-19. These are things that are not being tested and proven that they can work. But these are things that have been used over the years to boost your immune system, and I suppose that is what it is. It's about getting a strong immune system so when the virus comes, your body will be able to fight it. Everybody's can be exposed to the virus. It doesn't matter how strong your immune system is. The duration, the time in which, the length of time that you have the virus depends, again, on the strength of your immune system and the ability to fight. So therefore, you need to take other precautionary measures. Those of you who wake up in the morning and have sodas for breakfast, start drinking a cup of tea. something like lemongrass, lime bush, guava bush work well for chikungunya. You have maiden apple. They have said it is one that can work. There's the leaf of life, the juice from the leaf of life. It helps with mucus in the system, because that's one of the things that COVID would have done. It affects your lungs. You have problem breathing, so you can get things that would help you to get rid of that mucus in your lung. You can do steams where you can, we used to do that when we were growing up. You throw some Vicks in the water, some peppermint oil, and you put a towel over your head if you don't have a steamer, in some hot water, with some hot water in a basin, and you steam so you can inhale, and it would clear your ear, your passage. There are lots of little things that we can do. Let us not forget that we are from the Caribbean islands, and we understood old tales where or foreparents or grandparents used to do when we were sick. We were not going to doctor for everything. We were using a lot of the herbs that we used to use. They're still there, and we still can use them. So we ask that you exercise not just caution, but be more responsible. There are things that we can do to help to boost the immune system, so I expect that we should start doing likewise. So I'm going to open the lines, and we can have a discussion about the things that we can do moving forward, and how serious we have to start taking this COVID situation. We realize everybody has been affected. The schools are now being affected. Our children are at school. Lots of these young children, their immune system is already compromised. There are people out there who are already sick, and it is a frightening situation. But let I've said it all along, let fear not be the factor. Let us exercise our intelligence and do the things that are necessary. For those of you who want to call in and be a part of the program, the number is 466-0989, 762-0989, and 662-0989. You can call in, and we can talk about it as citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. We can say what we think are things that are necessary. I've listened to the herbalist who comes on the radio and start telling you some of the things that you can use. Thyme is a very good expectorant. You boil that in some water, you drink that. Don't take it from me, because I'm not an herbalist. I'm just telling you. So for that information, you can seek otherwise information from other people who have the know-how. But thyme, I know. I remember one time this young lady, she had an asthma attack. It was not a very good one. And I saw my mother, she boiled some thyme, and she gave her the water, she gave her the tea to drink, and in about half an hour, 45 minutes, she was breathing good again. So it's something that I go to. It's one of the things that I go to whenever my children are having or showing signs of heavy mucus on their chest. And it has worked. Like I said, it doesn't mean there's no one size fit all. And something for work for me doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But there are things that we can try. We have tried these things previously, and I think that we can continue to do so. The vaccination is there, and we have the Pfizer and the AstraZeneca. And so those of you who have a preference, we have the options that you can choose from either AstraZeneca or from Pfizer. But we have to do something, because it's not the joke. It pained my heart when I listened to the Prime Minister of St. Vincent, when he tapped his nervous fingers on his chest and he said, we have to start to source body bags and freezers to stock bodies in. That was reality. It hit home. Not that I was afraid, but then you realize the situation, knowing that people have to start making choices of who lives and who dies. That for me is very serious. It shows that people who we think that we can depend on, they have no information, and it's just, you realize now it's just what it is. It's the final stage. This is all that we have to do. We just have to make a decision of who we're going to allow to live and who we're going to let die. And I asked, what is the criterion for living, so that I can beef that up, make sure that I'm important and I'm needed, so people's going to work on me and make sure that I live. Because it is frightening, but it's the reality. Grenada is taking a serious hit. I know that for a fact. I've heard, it hurts when you listen to situations like this. I just spoke to a young lady from Dominica, and she said they're having a similar problem. Schools are not open there yet because of the COVID situation. And I asked myself the same question here: why are schools still open? You have batches of part being closed and part open. That really doesn't make any sense to me, but I suppose the NEOC would have the information, and they would make that informed decision, because children, you mix grade 1 would mix with grade 2 and grade 4, and it's so if one classroom has a problem, I suppose it would have spread to other classrooms. And I have a problem of waiting to see how many people would have contracted. I think we should always, we should not throw caution to the wind. I think that we should start looking seriously of how we are going to control the spread of COVID in the schools, because that is, for me, it's the easiest way. Children are always hugging and they're always sharing. They're not even aware of the dangers of COVID-19. I mean, it's just children know that it's out there. It can make you sick, but they're still gonna hug. And having children to wear masks for 8 hours, it's telling. It's tough. And these are the things that we have to look into. It's not just closing the schools for closing the schools' sake, but when you look at what the children have to do for the whole day, they have to be stuck with masks on because they themselves are trying to exercise caution. Who's going to be washing their hands every time? They can't. They're not in a position to do so. And for me, it's a difficult situation. I think I've said it before that we have to seriously start looking at virtual learning. I find they would have done a good job last school term. They've done a very good job. Children being home, and their schools, classes have been, taking place there. And for me, it's what they had to do, and they've done a good job. And I think that we really seriously have to start looking at that again to see whether or not our children, to create that environment and to curtail the spread of COVID-19. These are children in primary school. We don't have a vaccination for them yet. We have for those who are 12 and above. But what about those who are in early childhood care from 3 years up to 12 years? Those, and they can be exposed to the virus. So these are the things that we have to look into, and the government. It's tough for you. I know the Minister of Education, I know it's a tough job for him. Still the Minister of Entertainment. People want to be entertained. There's a situation out there. The children are being affected, but yet still people want to revel and party. And, you have to make sure that they too are happy. And that is an area that I have a problem with. Sometimes you say a lot of things and people miss some of the important areas and the important things that they have to listen to. But, for the life of me, I can't seem to understand that when we look at the situation and we understand that the COVID is spread when you have mass gatherings, when people are together, when you're not cautious enough to exercise that social distance, where everybody bulk up together. It scares me when people come to talk to me. I cringe, whether or not you're wearing a mask, but people come straight up and want to talk in your face. I cringe because you don't know who has the virus. And when we see people who wants these things, CPR would have brought some money to the country. I would imagine that. But yet still, can you tell people who are supposed to be mature that you have to exercise social distancing? I look at some of the videos and I ask myself the question, are we aware that whether or not you're vaccinated, you can contract the virus? Are we aware of that? And okay, if you were vaccinated and you would have contracted the virus, your time in which the time in which your symptoms and the time in which you would have the virus would be cut maybe in half or by a few days. But look at the fact that you might have to go home to your grandmother who is not in a position to take the vaccination, and you'll be carrying that virus there. These are the things that we have to take into consideration. We talk about herd immunity, and I don't think that you understood what Dr. Wilkerson was saying when he spoke about herd immunity and why herd immunity. Ignorant people, I listened to some of them talking about, we're not animals, we're not elephants. That's not what it meant. It meant that there are some people who are not in a position to take the vaccination, and what they did, it was metaphorically speaking. What they were talking about is, as the animals practice that, when you have the sick ones and you're walking together in a herd, and you keep the sick ones in the center and the stronger ones on the outside, because in the event that there is an attack, the stronger ones can protect the weaker ones. And that is one of the reasons why they compare it to that. It doesn't mean that's not what it means. So herd immunity means that you, the stronger ones who have no underlying problems can take the vaccination so that you could curtail the spread, and the weaker ones who are not in a position to take the vaccination, they would be protected. But when you look and you see that people and the way we are out there celebrating and congregating, and we have thrown all caution to the wind, and we are doing the things that we think it is the norm, that we are accustomed to do, and people are crying now. People are saying, oh, Shannon, please, I hope that Carnival, this Miss Sinkis this time would be in front of an audience. People are not thinking about the fact that we're getting sick and that our hospital is small, and our staff, the staff, they're small and they're humans. And nurses are they themselves are very, very cautious. And people say, oh, they don't treat us right. But they can be affected the same way. And nobody wants to sacrifice their lives because people who doesn't want to listen. You want a party, but at the end of the day, when you get sick, you don't care that the nurses themselves, they have a family to go to. But they have to spend time taking care of you. Dr. Wilkinson, the CMO, the members of the NEOC, they have families too that they have to spend time with. But when we behave the way we behave, so casual, so irresponsible, it makes their job harder. And then when you go to the hospital, you expect the nurses to baby you, to be there for you, to pamper you, to wipe you, to sit there with you 24/7. When they can't do that, it is a problem. You talk about the negative things about the hospital, but you have to understand our hospitals were designed to take a certain amount and no more. COVID wasn't a part of the plan because it wasn't something that you expect. But now you have to look and wait and look at the adjustment. But we complain about the situation in the hospital, but yet still, we still want to go out there and party and revel. The bikers want to go on their bicycle and do all kind of crazy stuff. And when they fall off, then we have a problem with it. They go to the hospital, oh, they're dead because of negligence from the doctors. We do the nonsense that we do, and then we find somebody that we have to blame. We have to play our role. And our role is we have to make sure that we do the things that we are supposed to do. The NEOC would have had millions, thousands, hundreds of discussions. The information is out there on what we have to do, what our contribution is as members of society. But what do? We are always dependent on them. They can't do anything else. We have to play our part. The spreading of the virus is with us. It can only be spread from person to person. So therefore, we have to know what we are doing. People are still congregating. People are still wondering. I know it's Independence coming up on Monday. There's another holiday, and people want to socialize. We saw the National Heroes Day was yesterday, and I want to say kudos. I was very much impressed when I saw the representative for East Bass there. He was the one who gave the medal to the young little girl who dialed 911. I was very much touched when I saw the whole thing, that the inclusion of the representative from East Bass there, and the fact that there are young people who have been recognized as heroes. And it really touched me, because for me, National Heroes Day is just another day. But when you see this recognition given to the elderly, people who would have made a contribution, I started to look otherwise, because sometimes it is the simplest things that we do and that are most effective but are not even recognized. And I was so proud, and I was touched when I saw the recognition that was given and why they were given. I was very much impressed and started looking at National Heroes Day in a different light. Some people look at it in a very political way. It's about politics, but it's just show, as the years go on, we see that other people are included and people are looked upon. Ordinary members of society have been recognized. Teachers who have given their long service, years of service. We look at the ordinary person in society who would have been there as mentors and everything else. And I was very much impressed. And so these are the things that we would now recognize that happens, and the kind of people who we are, and the fact that we don't let certain things go unnoticed. And so therefore, in order, you look at the love that you have for each other, and that is something that is unique to St. Kitts and Nevis. People talk about that, the love that we have, I mean, amongst each other, and people are grateful for that. And so, therefore, with all that love, we have to make sure that our brothers and our sisters, they themselves are protected by the things that we do. I'm going to see whether or not I can contact my guests at this time. So we're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back with more of your views.
St. Kitts people can done. Florida, Canada. Big up every kitty shot. When me fly go England, Europe, me have fun can done. But everybody know ain't no place like home. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problems, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From you love St. Kitts bad. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problems, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From you love St. Kitts bad. Full time if you big up me own, yeah. Big up me home. Me no want hear nothing about politics. Right you now I leave that alone. And me woman me ice you know. Out you with the ital rice you know. By the time come everybody nice you know. Inna them one zone. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From your love St. Kitts bad. Come take a look. More food to eat and cook. More places to see than you read in a book. If you're ready for a good time, let the good vibes steal your heart like a cook. But look, don't trouble or you'll get shook. St. Kitts sweet, you'll get hooked. Every other trip that you take won't compare to the St. Kitts trip that you took. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From your love St. Kitts bad. So much good people to meet. Me hear the word on the street. Is everybody a sing out? Say St. Kitts sweet. So much good people to meet. The word on the street is everybody a sing out. Say St. Kitts sweet. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From your love St. Kitts bad. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From your love St. Kitts bad. Florida, Canada. Big up every kitty shot. When me fly go England, Europe, me have fun can done. But everybody know ain't no place like home. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problems, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From you love St. Kitts bad. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man. From you love St. Kitts bad. Full time if you big up me own, yeah. Big up me home. Me no want hear nothing about politics. Right?
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back to Your Views. We just had to take a short break. We're trying to see if we can contact or make connections with my guests. I do hope that we would have him online more sooner than later. We're going to talk about, like I said, he's the minister responsible for entertainment and education, the two areas that are affected most by COVID-19. I do not want to be in his shoes, and I hope we can sympathize with him and understand the difficulties that he's having at this time. I'm not sure if General is still there. He hasn't called in yet, so we're still awaiting his call and hear what he has to say. Like I said, it's a very difficult moment. And again, he's new. It's his first term, and it's a lot. It's really a lot for a young man who has never been into politics before, never been in office before, have to deal with. And I must say kudos to him, though. I think he's doing a good job. He's handling the situation very well, because at the end of the day, we saw that we just had a successful CPL tournament here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I suppose after that, he has to now deal with the situations of the schools and see what he can do to make sure that learning continues and that the environment is conducive for that, and fair is really not the factor, because there are a lot of children. I know Rain comes, she cries every day. I don't want to go to school. I wish, Mommy, you can homeschool me because I don't want to catch COVID. It's just that fair. And when you listen to them as young children, they're not having an understanding of what it is, but they understand that it makes you sick, and it makes you very sick, and they don't want to be there. And then they can't play with their friends like they're accustomed to play, because you're just so afraid. And then it's the struggle of having to wear a mask and a visor. It's really tough for children having to, and the sun is so hot and they're sweaty. And I feel for them every day, every morning she leaves. I look at her and I really feel for her. It's really it's really, really sad to see what children have to go through in this time. And for us as adults, we have to recognize that when we behave responsibly, our children would not have to suffer the consequences of our ways, or the things, our choices. And that is one of the things that we have to understand. I'm going to take this call, and I'll go to a break, and I'll take this call for just a second.
St. Kitts people can done. Florida, Canada. Big up every kitty shot. When me fly go England, Europe, me have fun can done. But everybody know, ain't no place like home. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problems, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man, from you love St. Kitts bad. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problems, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man, from you love St. Kitts bad. Full time if you big up me own, yeah. Big up me home. Me no want hear nothing about politics. Right you now I leave that alone. And me woman me ice you know. Out you with the ital rice you know. By the time come everybody nice you know. You know them one zone. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man, from your love St. Kitts bad. Come take a look, more food to eat and cook, more places to see than you read in a book. If you're ready for a good time, let the good vibes steal your heart like a cook. But look, don't trouble or you'll get shook. St. Kitts sweet, you'll get hooked. Every other trip that you take won't compare to the St. Kitts trip that you took. Me no know about you, but me love St. Kitts bad. Me no know what them a talk about. When them say St. Kitts mad, when everywhere in the world have problem, everywhere need God. Tell them easy no man, from you love St. Kitts bad. So much good people to meet. Me hear the word on the street, is everybody a sing out. Say St. Kitts sweet. So much good people to meet. Me no know about you, but me love think it's bad. Me no know what them a talk about when them say think it's mad.
Okay, we're back. It's technology and it's all the technical difficulties that we experience sometimes. But when you have good technicians, sometimes it's just patience. It's a virtue, and sometimes it's what we need to exercise in order to get through. I think I have my guest online. Let's test and see. Testing, testing. Minister, are you there?
Good morning. Are you hearing me clearly?
I am hearing you clearly. It's just one of those mornings. Janelle, thank you for accepting my invitation. I know you are a busy, very, very busy person, as I would have said earlier. You are a minister responsible for confusion and chaos at this time. You have all of your sectors are basically seriously affected. You have entertainment. People are very much, they're complaining. They want it. It's the education. Children are fearful. Schools are having issues. COVID is wreaking havoc there. And you are a lone ranger. I ask myself the question, how do you do it? You're a young man, first time in politics. This is not a very good initiation, is it?
Well, it's a tough start, but I certainly wouldn't refer to it as confusion and chaos.
Okay.
I have fantastic teams in both of my ministries who are working assiduously to ensure that they manage all of the situation very well, and I'm really proud of the hard work that all of them are doing, from the management team within the Ministry of Education to all of our teachers, school staff, early childhood. They've really been bending over backwards to ensure that we maintain safe environments for our staff to work in and for the children to come and learn in. And then when you look at my other ministries, the youth, sport, and culture, we would have just completed a fantastic 33-game CPL tournament here, resulting in the St. Kitts Nevis Patriots being victorious for the first time, new champions of CPL T20, and a tournament that would have brought millions of dollars into our economy and really assisted hundreds of persons who would have been out of work for some time leading up to that. So, in all of the difficulties we have, and I think there's still some silver linings that we can celebrate.
And that is one of the reasons why I asked you to come on, because I want you to start telling people about the silver linings. CPL coming to St. Kitts. What were the benefits that it was? Because people were complaining, oh, this is hard times, and then why would you want to bring CPL here? Because these are hard times. People don't have money. People are afraid of COVID-19. What are the benefits of CPL coming here? This is people who are asking in ignorance, who have no information of why and how the country can benefit from having a CPL in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Why bring CPL here? Easy question. That is the tremendous economic benefit that CPL would have brought to St. Kitts and Nevis over the course of the last 4 to 6 weeks. You're talking about 300 plus persons who would have literally been long-term tourists here over the course of 6 weeks. The Marriott would have been full for the first time in almost 2 years. Other hotels such as Koi, Royal St. Kitts, the Park Hyatt, all would have benefited from guests. In some instances, significant long-term stay as well. So by doing so, the Marriott, for example, had to take back on more staff that had been unemployed for almost 2 years. Apart from the hotel, you'd have had some approximately 500 persons employed directly by CPL and benefiting. In the first 2 weeks alone, those 500 persons would have benefited from about approximately a little over 2 million EC dollars in payments.
Wow.
That was just in the first 2 weeks of the CPL cohort being here. So just there, you see the tremendous economic benefit. That has nothing to do with the ripple effects of having the tournament and having all of these persons visiting. We had a few number of tourists who came from other islands, even from as far as England that I'm aware of, who would have come in just to look at CPL. So tourism product really did get a boost. When you look at the viewership, as I understand it, has been in excess of 500 million people viewed CPL this year and viewed St. Kitts and Nevis. That is something that we cannot put a price tag on. That is something that the Tourism Authority would not normally have budget to be able to pay for and to advertise. That is free advertisement, or advertisement with significant value. Over 500 million people viewing St. Kitts and Nevis. So, those are just some of the benefits. I know there were some concerns about COVID, but thank God, during the course, in with over 300 persons coming in the CPL cohort, there were only two incidences of positive COVID-19 tests, both of which were caught during the mandatory
Testing.
quarantine period,
Yeah.
and so there was no spread beyond that. 2 out of over 300 and caught in quarantine. So we thank God for that, and I really have to give thanks to the medical team, both CPL and our local team, who worked together to ensure rigorous protocols and testing. And the local organizing committee, all the volunteers, all the workers, they all did a fantastic job to ensure that St. Kitts and Nevis looked very good. The groundsmen in particular, experts said there's no way you could have 33 matches on one field. Well, we did it.
Wow. Wow. We always break records. St. Kitts and Nevis as being, that's our history of defying all laws. That's one of the things that we have to be grateful for. That is one of the areas that you're in, and we're almost out of time, so I want to get this in education. We see that COVID is poking its head into our schools now again. What are the future plans for how we are going to deal with this situation?
Well, we're dealing with it in a very methodical way, and we're doing it with the advice and support of the Ministry of Health. And what we're doing is, if and when a case arises in a school, whether it be staff or student, there is a plan, there are protocols in place which will guide us and which will determine whether we have to put just a particular class have them revert to remote learning, or whether we have to go beyond that and do an entire school. I would have addressed the nation a few days ago,
Yes,
providing some information, speaking about the different levels at which we are designating schools, so that parents, stakeholders are aware what the situation is in every school. We're also about to launch our own dashboard, so that rather than, and I know we get these official notices that come out which have to be done, but there's a lot of wording, and I realize people don't really take time to read the entire notice.
Sure.
And so once they see a school, they figure the whole school is closed, when in truth and in fact it's only one class, for example. And so we are going to be introducing a dashboard which will make it much easier for persons to know exactly what schools are affected in what way, and publish those regularly as the situation changes. I can say that although we have been getting cases of positive persons in schools, we've also had recoveries and schools opening back up, and their case centers opening back up. I will admit, though, one of the major problems we're having is persons who ought to be in quarantine and isolation still allowing their children to come to school. We've had instances where children themselves have been tested for COVID-19, and before they get back the result, the parent has sent that child to school.
Wow.
And then the child ends up with a positive case. We've had instances where parents or children from households where parents have been in isolation or quarantine have been coming to school. In some instances, the parents themselves break quarantine to bring them to school.
Wow.
These things are not helping us. They're not helping each other. We are doing our best to provide a safe school environment and to work with all the different protocols. But things like that are not helping. And I appeal again to parents, to guardians, to have that personal responsibility and do what you know is right.
Yeah, that is becoming a serious bother. Last term, you did a very good job of virtual learning. I was very much impressed, the platform that you use, and to see how the response of the children. I have a young daughter who basically did virtual learning, and it was quite good. And I'm wondering whether or not this is something that you're looking forward to in the future, and see how you all can enhance and create your own platform so you can seriously start looking at virtual learning, because COVID is not going anywhere.
Right, and virtual learning, as easy as it sounds, it is not very easy at all. It is difficult with limited resources, limited infrastructure, both on our side as well as on the user side, the parent side.
Mhm.
But it is something that we continue to work on improving. We're in the process of acquiring additional devices for both students and teachers, and we have a number of partners locally and internationally who are working with us to bring various solutions, whether it be to provide internet at home for needy persons or persons who are not in a position to have internet, as well as in terms of equipping the schools with internet and devices. And
Wow.
one of the things that I keep saying is we would have last year created a document outlining all of the protocols as it relates to schools and COVID 19, um, school dates, significant dates, opening and closing of terms, what happens if there are cases of COVID 19. We'd have updated that document and made it a public document even before schools open. That is a document which anybody can have, any parent, any stakeholder can have in order to know exactly what we're doing within the Ministry of Education.
I know I've seen that document, but like you said, a lot of times we don't like to read because it's wordy, it's long,
Right.
and people, you just skim to see, only see what they're trying to say here, and people miss out on the important things because we don't read. The information is out there, and at the end of the day, people are complaining that education is not doing this, and the information is out there, but people we're not paying attention, and that is one of the big problems. We're definitely out of time, Minister, but then we have to look. I see that Shannon, she have rolled out the contestants for Miss
Yes.
Sinkis and National Carnival. It is fun to see. I like the girls. They're very intellectual. Oh, they're beautiful. It's classy. I like the way they're going and the creativity that you see coming out when people have to do. We're now doing things virtually, and you have, like you said before, you have a great team, and it shows that you have a very very good team. People are still being entertained. You can look at it online. The information is there, and I'm grateful. So, are we saying that in 2020 we are going to have 2021? Sorry, we're going to see. We're going to be able to go to the screen shows.
Well, let me first of all congratulate Shannon Hawley, the Carnival chair, the pageant chair, and the entire team for the fantastic work that they've been doing. As people will see, there's a lot of multitasking going on
Hmm.
in St. Kitts, and the presentation thus far has been warmly welcomed. It has been,
Exceptionally
a
great.
real,
Yeah,
a real uh,
classy and professional.
professional,
Yeah.
classy
Hmm.
production thus far.
Hmm.
Just this morning, got some stats. In 24 hours, we've had tens of thousands of views and likes, and they're really trending.
Yeah.
And yes, the hope is that come Sugar Mass 50, the hope is that we will be able to have in-person pageants and events as far as is possible
Hmm.
when it comes to safety protocols. The first thing that we have to ensure is that persons are safe, and we will try our best to have in-person events as far as possible.
Well, Minister, I really want to congratulate you. I mean, through the hardships and all of the difficulties that you're faced with, I find you're doing a great job. For a newcomer, you have done exceptionally well. Your team, like you said, you have a great team. I want to congratulate them too. And you're working and you're producing, and that is one of the good things. And I do hope that whatever assistance I can be, I really would want to be, and I want people to recognize it is not as easy as it looks. Although we are benefiting, we think that it is simple. I know it must be difficult for you.
Right. Yeah. It's a hard job, but I, nobody put me up to do it. I came myself, and the people in Central Bass, there, really put their faith in me to do this, and so I will continue to do my best to ensure that I do a fantastic job or the best job I can, at the tasks that have been laid before me and to represent the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
You've done so. You've continued to do a good job, and I appreciate the fact that you would have come. And it's short, and I definitely need to sit down again and talk to you because we want to know where we were going in the future, not just for entertainment. Entertainment, yes, because that industry has taken a big hit because of COVID, but the education of our children, it's another area of difficulties, and we definitely need to sit down. And people who are not reading, maybe you'll be able to talk to them and they have a better understanding of the protocols that are in place, the things that they have to do, and not you can't make people responsible, but I suppose when you continue to talk to them, people would start noticing the errors of their ways and they would do otherwise. Thank you for accepting my invitation. I know you're extremely busy, and I would call you again and see how we can make arrangements this time so we can have an hour instead of 15 minutes. But thank you for your 15 minutes as well, Stan.
Happy Independence to everybody and have a safe weekend.
Same to you, and look after yourself. Okay, that year you had it. It was the Minister of Education and Entertainment, Youth and Culture. That's why it's entertainment on the whole. Honorable General Powell, a young man he is, he has taken on that role. It is a big role for me. When it was given the ministry, I felt for a newcomer, it was a lot. And then again in COVID crisis, it was even more. But I must say kudos to him. He have done an excellent job given the circumstances. But like I said, it is not just the minister who does the work. It's the people, the permanent secretaries. When you have a team of people who understand what they have to do, it makes life so much easier. I'm going to appeal to the parents again because it's a reality. Your children are sick. Keep them at home. I know it is difficult sometimes because school is not just a place for learning. For some parents, it's a place for you can babysit and you can look after the children while they work. And so if by chance the child becomes sick and the parent is at work, nobody's there to look after the child, and it is a difficult situation. But we do have to understand that COVID is not just an ordinary cold. It has long-term side effects. It kills. And so therefore one has to start weighing the prioritizing. And I don't think that your employers would find it difficult, because if you have been exposed to a child that has COVID, then you yourself supposed to be in quarantine, because then you have been exposed. And so that is something that is understood. But I find it is such an unfair situation when you are sending, and like what the minister said, you are in quarantine, you're breaking quarantine to take a child that should be in quarantine to school, and then you're going to pick up that child. Parents, you have to learn to spend time with your children. That is the difficult thing. A lot of parents, they're home and they don't want the children to be home. I don't understand why. They're your kids. You got them. Start taking the responsibility of looking after your children and making sure that your children are safe. It is not, at the end of the day, it is not the CMO's responsibility, or it's not the medical chief of staff. It is not the government's responsibility. We as parents, we have to play that role of making sure that our children are kept in an environment that is healthy and free of COVID. And the best place for that to be is home. So please, when there are protocols and we have to learn to pay attention to protocols, we have to make sure that we social distance, we have to make sure that we wear our mask, and of course, we have to sanitize. Wash your hands. Use hand sanitizers. Hand sanitizers alone don't work. So after you've used that initially, you get home, you make sure you wash your hand. Adhere to protocols. And in doing so, the life that you save might very well be your own. We have seen that. We see the people are dying. And we have to make sure that we do the things that are necessary. It was a pleasure being here with you. Yet it's another Friday. It's time for us to let our hair down. It's the stress of the week. We normally tend to throw it off on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Monday is a holiday. Happy Independence to you guys. St. Kitts have done it. We have been there for 38 years. We have signed, we've asked for that, and we are on our own basically, and we've done a great job. Let us continue to celebrate, but do so realizing that we have COVID-19 as a factor, and that we should exercise all caution and make sure that we are responsible, and our responsibility would curtail the spread of COVID-19. My name is Sandra Quiliatis, and it was a pleasure being here, and I'm looking forward to doing the same thing next week, Friday. Continue to stay tuned to Winner from 98.9. Voices is up next.